Hey, everyone, and welcome to the All It Takes is a Goal podcast, the best place in the entire world, including all of Canada, to learn how to build new thoughts, new actions, and new results. I'm your host, Jon Acuff, and today I'm joined by Jenny Acuff. That's right, the Jenny Acuff. My wife is on the show today. It's a fun episode. She's a difficult guest to get. Even though we live together, like we live in the same house, she was incredibly difficult to book. But it's Valentine's Day, so I was able to convince her to do a special episode where I get to ask her lots of questions. We talk a ton about what's it like to be married to a dreamer. That's the question we get more than any other. People say, okay, Jon and Jenny, you've been married for 20 years. You do creative work together. You've launched projects together. How do you be married to a dreamer? Often there's somebody in a relationship and they'll say, wow, my spouse is really over the top with dreams. Or they'll say, I'm the dreamer. How do I get my spouse or my boyfriend or my girlfriend to understand the things that I'm into and support? So we get to talk a ton about that. I think you're going to love this episode. But first, a quick message about the sponsor of today's episode. Whether your engines have been running all winter long or you've been hibernating through the cold, let's talk about a food that will keep you going all season: macadamia nuts. Imagine enjoying macadamia nuts without having to go on a mission to find them among their distant cousins in the mixed nut package. A handful of these naturally buttery flavor bombs has the perfect calorie breakdown of proteins, healthy fatty acids, fiber, and a couple of carbs so you can snack without throwing yourself out of whack. You can get freshly roasted macadamia nuts in a variety of snack sizes from Yuguazi Macadamia. But you won't just get better macadamia nuts from Yuguazi, you'll also help build a better world. Yuguazi means knowledge in Zulu because this isn't just another nut brand. Yuguazi is a nonprofit whose primary mission is providing quality and affordable college education to African students. Yuguazi doesn't just give a percentage of profits to charity. All the profits from their 14,000 macadamia nut trees and their freshly roasted macadamia sales belong to Yuguazi International Christian University, a fully accredited nonprofit and Christian university in the Kingdom of Eswatini. Order your next snack from buymacadamias.com. That's BUYMACADAMIAS.com. When you use the code Jon Acuff, let's spell that too. That's JONACUFF. You'll get a free snack size package of roasted and lightly salted macadamia nuts with any order. That's buymacadamias.com. Use the code Jon Acuff. You can help build a better world while enjoying a healthy yet tasty snack of Yuguazi macadamia nuts. All right, let's jump right into my interview with the Jenny Acuff. All right, Jenny, I need to start off by saying, because people won't be able to see this, we're not in the same room.
No, you might not get as much cooperation from me because we're not in the same room.
Well, that was the second thing I was going to say, is that you are my first hostile guest, I would say. I haven't had a guest that came on and I felt like it was going to be a little bit of a fight for the interview, but you might be the first.
Agreed.
The reason we're not in the same room is that I don't own two microphones. You know, eventually I'll have a studio. I think we could, I totally will have a studio. This is going to be an empire. Eventually I'll have more than one.
Where is it going?
I don't know. On top of the house. We'll put it somewhere, but I'll have a studio. The reason you're hostile is that you don't like doing, like, when people ask us to speak together, you're like, nope. Yep. I'm the on-stage person. You're the off-stage person, making it all happen. So I'm thrilled you're on. It's a Valentine's Day episode. So the theme is going to be really personal questions about our love. I have a whole
I guess I'm going to be real quiet then.
No, I don't. That's not going to be the theme. The theme is going to be what we get asked about the most, which is, how do you be married to a dreamer? I would say that's a question that when people see our marriage, we've been married for 20 years, that's the question they have the most. So I've got some questions for you about that. My first question is...
Do you have the ring light on for me?
Yeah, I have a ring light on. Yeah, for you. I want to look good. I apologize for wanting to look good. Yes. Nobody can see this video but you. Yeah, it's weird you don't have a ring light. Why wouldn't you want a ring light? Can we focus on the interview? I haven't gotten to the first question yet about being married to a dreamer.
That was my first comment.
That was your first question was, do I have a ring light on? That's funny. So we've been married for 20 years. We spent our first couple of years in Boston. We moved to Atlanta. We now live outside of Nashville. And the question we get is, how do you be married to a dreamer? So my first question for you is, have you finished writing your book yet?
So are you teeing me up to tell the story?
No, I want to hear you tell the story of that book because I think it's a great place to start as an example of that it can often be ridiculous and annoying to be married to somebody who is a dreamer.
Well, so I typically do what I say I'm going to do.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But I don't typically do things that my husband says I'm going to do.
That is a fine distinction. That is a fine distinction.
So you decided to say I was going to write a book when I had no intention of ever writing a book. And now for the last, decade?
I'd say 8 years.
I've been asked about the fact that I haven't done the thing that I didn't ever want to do.
That's a pretty good summary. And you said one of the conditions for you to come on this podcast, first guest that's had conditions, I might add, was that you wanted me to do 80% of the talking.
Yes.
So I'm going to go ahead and say that up front because I know the feedback I'm going to get from this episode is, Jon, you should have shut up. Why did you not let Jenny talk?
Because he wanted to eat dinner.
Yeah, exactly. Because I wanted the rest of the day to go well. Okay, so what happened with that story was I thought you should write a book about how to be married to a dreamer. So instead of talking to you about it, I did what dreamers often do, which is get really, really, really excited.
And tell the internet.
I told the internet. I announced it. And I got probably 3,000 or 4,000 people to sign up on an email list about that book that I didn't tell you. I told you eventually once there was some buzz. I got the groundswell going. And what's funny is Jenny is not exaggerating. For the last 8 years, we'll be out somewhere in Nashville. And if somebody sees me and says, oh, I read your books, they'll often go, Jenny, when is your book coming out? People have sent us encouraging, motivational.
Like that I'm very
yeah.
What is it when you can't write? What's that called?
You're locked up. You're writer's block?
Writer's block. I have writer's block.
You have 8 years. And people will send us encouraging mail, physical mail that's like, Jenny, you can do it. And so, yeah, that was pretty annoying. But if somebody's listening to this right now and they've got a husband who's a dreamer, a wife who's a dreamer, boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, whatever, what would you say has helped our marriage work? What have we figured out over the last 20 years about how to communicate when I've got a big idea and you've got questions? What are some things that have helped us?
I think you have to kind of figure out how to manage the dreamer's feelings, because eventually you have to tell them the truth, but you have to manage those feelings because there's a lot of feelings with dreamers.
There are a lot of feelings. So when you say tell them the truth could be that's a bad idea.
That's a terrible idea. Yeah.
That's a terrible idea. That won't make any money.
Acorns don't immediately die.
Yeah, I showed you something in a new book I'm writing just the other day, and you were like, that's not true.
That's not how acorns work.
It was a scientific fact that I think most humans know about acorns, and I just got it wrong. And you were like, that is, the point you're making is actually, that's not right. And I was able to hear that because I'm mature.
You wouldn't have been able to 10 or 12 years ago. That's practice.
That is practice. And I think that's something that we've talked about a lot. Like when John Woodall, who's a writer, speaker, pastor out of Atlanta, it really helped us to understand his theory of there's a how person and there's a wow person. Mm-hmm. That in a marriage, there's two different types of people. And so I'll often come downstairs because I work at home with some crazy idea that I haven't thought through. And I'll make a declaration that this is
like a word salad of information.
Word salad. And I'm like, this is the new direction of my entire life. This is what I'm doing. And then how do you react in that moment?
I don't know. Sometimes we can redirect quickly. It just depends on how grumpy you're going to be.
See, that's what's interesting. I think it does come down to some of that feeling management of, okay, what's the response going to be? I would say that over our marriage,
well, you're now in your 40s. In your 30s, I mean, it was weeks before you could hear the truth.
ooh, that is not good.
Well, but you were a young writer. You're a mature writer now. So you understand that your ideas aren't your identity. But, at 32, 33, they were all jumbled up.
Okay, that's a really interesting thing. The idea of the work you're doing, the dream you have, it's so tangled up in your identity that when the how person, which is you, asks questions and not attacks them, but any question feels like an attack.
Yes.
Like when you introduce logic or reason or reality into a dreamer's world, it can often on the surface feel like, why does this person hate me so much? That's how I
yes,
I can see that.
And your face typically looks that way.
My face looks that way. Okay. But you know what? It does look nice with a ring light.
I
so
know.
Maybe from here on out, if I really want this skin to glow.
It does make your hair look grayer.
That's just my head. My hair is so great. But if I dyed my hair, you would hate that.
Oh, it would be awful.
Like I have a list of things that if I came home with, Jenny would be like, let's go back to counseling. I think one is a puppy. If I surprised you with a puppy.
Mm-hmm.
I think another one is if I got a tattoo without talking to you. Like even a cool one. Like even like if I got some
would it
wicked,
be cool without my advice?
Like a wicked cool like barbed wire around one of my biceps?
No.
You would be like, nope. If I bought a car, if I did the December to remember and put a bow on a car and didn't tell you, and just like, boom, Lexus, you'd probably have some issues with that. But I think there's a couple things that we've been deliberate about that have helped us when it comes to, dreaming together, building a company together, because a lot of people don't know the Acuff Ideas LLC is the company we own together, and you're an active part of that. One is, I think that we make the most of the time we have. Like we're more deliberate about time. And I think that started with the first book I wrote and Burger King.
You mean we, like you and me?
You and I got really deliberate about time. Okay, hey, and that started when the first time I was going to write a book, I had a full-time job.
How old were the girls then? They were little.
I think they were 2 and 4, maybe.
Yeah, they were little. They were in that keep them alive, put them to bed at 6 p.m. age.
Yeah. And I wanted to write a book, but I had a really full life and a lot of commitments. And you kind of showed me a pocket of time I can use. Can you tell that story?
Yeah. So you were doing like a men's group or something?
Men's group, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it was on a 1 weeknight, and we lived like achingly far from where you worked. Like
in Atlanta.
Yeah. I mean, 45 minutes to an hour. And so you could have driven home that night, seen us for like 20 minutes, and then gotten in the car again to go to that men's group. And I was like, well, you probably should just go straight to that men's group, and then you'd have like an hour and a half to write. But it ended up that you had to write at a Burger King because of that.
That was the only,
Well, there wasn't like Wi-Fi and stuff then. It was a long time ago.
No, that's why my hair's gray. Yeah, there wasn't some cool coffee shop. It was, so I wrote in the Burger King, and your big thing was, hey, if you're going to be gone, make the use of the time.
Yeah.
Like, don't be at the Burger King reading a book, looking at a magazine.
I mean, there wasn't even social media to distract you at the time, I don't think.
But I still could have just goofed off.
You could have.
But you're like, hey, like, if we're going to really do this, let's do it. So here's a window of time. And I think getting up early was another thing that helped me.
Yeah, I think you went over to my parents in that season, right?
I would go to your parents' house. But I think also like getting up at 5 a.m. to write before work was another indication to you of, okay, this is serious. Like that's where my career, what we're able to do changed, is when I think I stopped giving you so many declarations and started to turn.
You started to do stuff. Did you? Would you drive to work and then write in your car to avoid the commuting? I can't remember.
Yeah, I would drive. I would get up really early and drive to work before everybody. In Atlanta, you have to schedule your life around
the traffic. Yeah, so you would go and get there quickly and then be able to have an hour or two before work.
Yeah, but it was the first time that I'd said for years, I'm going to do these things. I've got these plans, and I think it's really hard for a spouse to support just words. There's not a lot to words. They're kind of thin. But when you start going, okay, I'm gonna have some actions, here's what we're going to do.
I mean, I think also the addition of having small children, which really limits your free time, it probably made it easier for you to be deliberate. You know, I mean, you had all the time in the world before we had children, and the time wasn't as precious.
Yeah.
So you weren't as good of a steward of it.
Yeah. And when I had more limit, and I think that's one of the paradoxes of creativity is that limits actually help you be more creative.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Although I raged against them. Like when the kids...
you did. Mm-hmm. The temper tantrum when...
Yeah. You tell that story.
I don't know. I guess McCrae must have been 2 or 3 because she was a quick to quit napper. And, you know, she dropped her afternoon nap and you had like this huge temper tantrum because you expected that on Saturday afternoons you'd have like an hour and a half to do whatever you wanted. And I was like, that's ending. I
felt like we should have voted on that.
Well, but you don't get to say.
You don't get to vote with 2-year-olds. They're terrible at democracy. They are dictators.
They are dictators, yeah.
And so I remember, it was like the first Saturday, I was like, all right, I'm going to go do some stuff. And you were like, no, you're not here. Like the kids are awake and active. And I was like, what? I thought our agreement was naps. And that agreement ended.
It ended. I mean, you got a good run. You got 4 or 5 years.
It was great. It was a great run. I think one of the things we've worked on a lot is how to give constructive feedback or pushback to ideas, whether that's
to each other.
Yeah. Like, hey, we're talking about buying a house. Hey, although you will do that on me without even like the house we live in currently, you're like, hey, I'm making an offer on this house. It's going to be great. So it's not, you're really good at
go
that.
Inside.
I didn't go inside.
No, because you're bad at those choices.
I am bad at those choices. But you asked me a question once when I showed you something I was dreaming about. And the question was, do you want compliments or feedback?
Yeah.
And I thought that was brilliant. What did you mean by that?
Well, just, again, that's about managing your dreamer's emotions. Like, where are you on your vulnerability scale? Like, do you need to be praised or can we be truthful?
So I think though that that's that.
But new ideas are pretty fragile. So
they're super fragile.
They're like a newborn. They need to be matured before you can, get them to walk around.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. They are fragile at the beginning. And I think one of the things Brian Koppelman, who's a friend of ours and a writer and a producer, said that he will sit on an idea for 24 hours. He won't show it to somebody for 24 hours. So there's times where I'll have an idea, I'll work on something, but I'll need some space before I show it to you or anyone else. Because if I show it to somebody too quickly and they give me feedback, I won't push through and actually do the idea. It has to be sturdy enough to receive feedback.
Yeah, the idea is still too vulnerable. So it's still kind of part of you.
Yeah.
24 hours makes it not part of you.
Exactly. But I love that question, compliments or feedback, because there are some times I just need you to be like, go for it, keep pushing, you can do it. And there's other times where I need you to be like, ooh, that is
boring.
Oh yeah, you said that just the other day. I asked you to read a section of, it was like 2 chapters, and you came upstairs to my office.
And I sat down, which is never good when I come up and sit down. Because I need to redirect you before we waste any more time.
Yeah. Because I swear to you, I would have spent 3 weeks down this really boring.
Like, I was like, everybody knows this.
No, there was no joy to it. And I was so glad. And maybe it's because I'm in my 40s, but I was so glad you were able to say that, because I was bummed to have lost the 3 or 4 hours that I spent on it, but I was thankful to save the 3 or 4 weeks of the wrong direction. Mm-hmm. And I think that was big. Another principle that I think helped us was one from our friend Al Andrews, who taught us to not lie for each other. Can you explain what that means?
Well, the way he explained it to you, I don't know if I was with y'all at the time, is that, if you have an argument in the morning and then you part and then you think about that argument throughout the day and then add words and colors and feelings to what you feel like your spouse has said to you or your partner, that you're lying for them because they didn't say those things. You're just imagining with your hurt feelings that they said those things.
Yeah. And I think it can even happen if you haven't had an argument where we've talked before about not making you like the bad cop. Like, because what can happen in a marriage where there's a dreamer, there's somebody who's a how person who's like more strategic, more tactical. The dreamer can often be like, well, they're the buzzkill. They like, I have all these ideas I want to do, but they don't let me do them. And I think it's often tempting in those moments to lie for the person versus just actually talking about it.
Well, they're just using me. You just use me as an excuse to not do something you're afraid of. I'm a proxy for like, oh, Jenny wouldn't like this, so I won't do it.
I think that's one of the things that, like, travel. I would say travel was where we saw that happen. In my opinion, it's one of the most helpful sections of my new book, Soundtracks, is when you pulled me aside and kind of reframed business travel. Can you share with people what, that approach, your approach to that conversation? Because I think there's a lot of people that feel that tension, a lot of parents especially. Can you explain?
Well, you were treating it like drama. It is dramatic. Travel in and of itself is chaotic and dramatic, but you were treating every trip as this opportunity to fail your family, where we're like, no, you're serving your family by making money for us. So I just think you like travel, but hate it. And so I think sometimes it was sort of all blended together.
Well, I think that, the big thing for me was that I was making the kids feel the tension of it.
Yeah, you were being like, oh, I'm going to miss this. And I was like, stop it. You're being drama. Yeah.
Well,
they don't care.
They don't notice. Most of the time, they don't even notice.
You're just doing your job.
Yeah, I'm teaching them to be sad. Like, and that's even the way the brain works with mirror neurons, is that they didn't know to be sad. I would be like, hey, I'm about to leave. I'll be home in 3 sleeps. And kids have no concept of time.
Yeah, and they were also maybe 12 at the time.
Yeah,
too.
And so I was like, I gotta go. I gotta light a candle for me in the window until I get home. And you were like, you're giving them your sadness. Like, you're stirring up all this sadness, all this drama. Then you leave. Like, you leave me with the drama kids that you've just created. And the thing that I didn't even notice was that it quietly teaches them that work sucks. Like, if you spend 18 years telling your kids, oh, work is miserable, work is miserable, work is miserable, no wonder they don't want to get a job when they graduate. And so it felt like this potpourri of reasons, just be like, no, go. Like, I know you don't like Bill Belichick necessarily. I do, as a Patriots fan. But it felt very.
He just doesn't look like he's having any fun.
He owns a ton of sweatshirts with no sleeves, so that's pretty nice. But it felt very Bill Belichick for you to be like, do your job. Like, go do your job. We're so happy you're doing your job. This is awesome. Go do your job. And that reframed my ability to do business travel, which I thought was great.
Well, I think you were always nervous leaving, not leaving us, just, like the tension of going and doing something. The things you do for your job are a little nerve creating. And you were just applying that to the kids versus being honest and saying it was about you.
Yeah, and dealing with it and working on it. Yeah, like doing the work. Be like, boy, these kids are real sad. I'd love to do that, but these kids are so sad. And you're like, what? They don't even notice. I think one of the questions we get a lot, you and I, is how do I get my spouse to support me? So let's imagine there's a listener that, has that question. What would you say? So I'm in a marriage or I'm in a dating relationship, whatever, and I'd love my significant other to support me. What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, you need to support them. You get what you give. A marriage or partnership is each person giving 100%, not each person giving 50%. And that's really the only way it works.
Yeah. So if you are in a position where you're like, I'd love them to support my dream, start by going to support their dream.
Totally. Yeah. You know how it is. And when you live together, like, the person who keeps score is always going to win, but the marriage always loses.
Oh, there's the tweet. The person who keeps score is always going to win, but the marriage always loses. Yeah, I think you have to have it be scoreless, because you say that to us sometimes. Like, you say that in the house. That's a Jenny
because
phrase.
Everybody will be like,
oh, I had
Well,
to empty the dishwasher. And what will you say?
I'll say like, well, if we're keeping score, I win.
Yeah. Or they'll say, oh, I had to make my own breakfast. And you go, oh, do you want to go for that? You want to count meals? Let's count who cooked meals this week. You do not want to get into the ring with Jenny Acuff, which is why, and it's another example.
It's just a miserable way to live. Like, who wants to keep score?
No, I don't want that either. And I think that one of the things that you said in an answer to that question, we got asked once at a conference, and you had a microphone and you didn't drop it, but you could have. But somebody stood up and gave a pretty long, rambling question that sounded like, how do I get this dumb spouse to support my awesome dream?
Yeah,
and
it was.
Do you remember what you said?
I think I said something about like money helps or.
Yeah, you said money helps. That's all you said. You said money helps, and then you left it there. And like the crowd started clapping. And again, I think, in that moment, you were saying, hey, if you're building something, it helps that it's actually efficient. It helps that it actually produces something. It helps that it actually is contributing to the family. Like, spouses don't want to go on a ton of crazy journeys. And especially if you've gone on one. I started an ad agency that failed. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, I do.
Yeah,
it was expensive.
It was expensive.
I mean, it was like a master's level course. I mean, it was pretty quick, though. I mean, we didn't have to go to school for a couple of years. You got to learn that pretty quick.
I did learn that lesson fairly quickly, and it was an expensive lesson. But if you've done some expensive lessons and you haven't learned from them, that's where I think a spouse goes, I don't want to do 10 more of these. Like, I want, show me that you're getting up early. Show me that there's money involved.
Well, your how person is probably your detail person. So, the dreamer's going to have to apply some detail towards the detail person.
Speaking of details, you recently purchased me something, and it's a real thing. This isn't just a bit. What did you buy me recently?
Well, I bought you, I think they call it a dad cap. What do they call it? Like very dad baseball cap, I don't know,
maybe a dad cap. I disagree with adding the word dad to things because it's meant to criticize my people.
Yeah, that's
dad
true.
bod, not a compliment. Dad joke, not a compliment.
Oh, dad jokes are great.
But they don't mean funny. They mean like kind of terrible. Like,
no, but they mean like goofy.
Yeah, I guess so. I love them. But you bought me a hat. What does the hat say on it?
Detailed.
So you ordered a stitched hat that all it says across it is detailed.
Yes, because you were having a hard time doing some things that you needed your detailed hat on, and you're capable of being very detailed if you want to be.
Yeah, I can turn it on, but you were basically like, here, I need you to put this hat on occasionally. And so it's actually
and then like respond to our accountant.
Yeah, exactly. Like, keep us out of jail with taxes. Like, we need to do some stuff. Like, we're the adults. That I think that hits you in like maybe your late 20s, early 30s, where something happens at your house and it's like the water heater goes out or a roof leak, and you're like, man, who are the adults that are going to fix this? And then
it's you.
You realize, oh, it's me. It's me that does that. But yeah, you bought me a detailed hat, which just continues to crack me up. It's
helpful, isn't it?
It's totally helpful. I've got it right here, and I'll wear it. I'll be like, okay, I've got to do this in my inbox. I'm not looking forward to it. It's not my feeling. If I ask my feelings are like, oh, you don't want to do that. You're not motivated. You're not. Where it's just like, I don't have to be motivated. I just have to put the hat on, and then I have to do the thing,
and then you get to take it off.
Yeah, and then I get to take it off, and when I have that off, I'll be glad. I think that's so funny. I think it's just little things like that absolutely crack me up. I think one of the things that we talk about a lot is allowing the other person to have their own level of excitement. So I think there's a tension. Like, if I've learned over the years, if I come downstairs with an idea and I expect you to match or even exceed my level of thrill about it, we're already in a tough place because it doesn't allow you to express your personality and who you are. Well,
but I need to process the idea. You've had like 3 cups of coffee related to the idea, and I've just woken up.
Yeah, that's 100% true. Where I might have been thinking about it for 3 weeks. I might have, been working on it. And then I come down and give you a postage stamp sized bit of information. And I'm like,
with a lot of
please,
energy.
with a lot of so much passion. And then I come down and do like a mini Hamilton. And then I expect you to, standing ovation. I want a standing ovation would be very nice.
Mm-hmm.
But that does not happen. But I think over the years I've learned you're going to process it. You're going to think about it. I learned that from Eric Larson. Eric Larson, who's an author, he says he has to leave town for his wife to read his books.
Devil in the White City guy.
Devil in the White City author. He said, I have to leave. I can't be in the same state when my wife is reading my, early works. And so I think giving you something I've written has been
typically
helpful.
You give it to me and leave. Like You typically at the end of your morning writing session and you have some afternoon appointments, that's when you leave.
Yeah, I give you a pencil.
Manuscript on my chair with a pencil, and then you leave the house.
Yeah, I would say though that we've also taught the kids this principle where like if they want something, if they're really into something, then like put some effort into it and present it.
Oh yeah, so, I need a slide deck.
Slide deck. There's times where like Ellie put together a slide deck for TikTok. Like we weren't going to casually give her access to TikTok because it, turns out not everybody on the internet has your child's best in mind. Just there's a handful of people that aren't great. And so she prepared like a 10-point slide deck of like, here's the accounts I want to follow. Here's the type of content I want to do. Here's my agreement with the phone. I thought that was a good lesson for her and for me in the sense of if I want you to be into something, it helps if I show that I'm into it too.
Yeah.
Versus just being casual upfront with it.
Well, there's a lot of ideas, John.
There are a lot of ideas.
It's hard for us to know which ones are actually going to like mature into ideas that stay around for a while.
Totally. Yeah. And that goes back to the John Woodall thing. I think his advice there was the how person should say wow for like 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then more than likely
2 weeks 2 days, is too long for you.
In 2 days, the idea is going to be gone. I won't even remember that idea. But if 2 weeks later, I'm still working on it, you go, okay, well, let's ask a couple how questions. Mm-hmm. Let's think through this.
Well, but your writing process with your books now is we fiddle together with the core concept long before you start putting pencil to paper. And so we kind of help, otherwise you go down like pencil to paper down 7 ideas before it actually matures. And it makes you kind of, it gets you all kind of stirred up.
Yeah, that's stirred up. That's a nice way to say it. That's a funny way to say it. I've got a couple of lightning round things that you've said to me that I'd like you to explain to the audience. Because I think that often on my social media feed, when I share something you've said, people love it. And it feels like people will say, it's so funny. I'll share it and they'll go, she needs to write a book. And then I'll go, I know, right? It's ridiculous. It's been taking her this long. I apologize. She's not usually lazy, but on this particular project, I don't say any of those things, obviously. But here are a couple things.
Privately to me.
I do to you. Yeah, well. So we joke about stuff like that all the time. And that's part of what's funny. But here's a couple things you've said to me. Stop saying you have haters. There aren't people actively thinking about how much they hate you all day. You bumped into a handful of grumpy people who said something mean to you once online. You call them haters because it makes you feel more important. Can you unpack that for us?
I mean, I think I said it all there, didn't I?
You said it all there. So was that just more drama? Do you think, I think that there's a lot, it does make you feel good ego-wise to imagine like, man, I'm really dealing with a ton of haters. And it's like one jerk on the internet who's already forgotten you.
Yeah.
Unless you're a politician.
Well, and I mean, you said that a while ago. I don't know. It's a distraction. Social media for you feels like creative work. Because, it definitely is in your skill set. And if you can stir up a lot of drama over there, then you don't actually have to do the work that you need to do.
Oh, okay. Okay. So the drama becomes a noble excuse.
Totally. Well, or just, like you need to work your ideas out verbally. I know that about you. The internet is not a safe place to do that.
No, it's not. It's not.
It was 15 years ago, in blog form. 15 years ago, it was, and it isn't that way anymore. It's a marketplace. It's no longer like a coffee house where you talk to people. It's a marketplace. And you just need to remember that when you're on the internet, it's a marketplace. It's not your living room.
Yeah, you've said that to me before, that you're in essence carrying the mall in your pocket.
Yeah.
And if you need to kind of reframe it. And I think if you think about it, every app on your phone other than the calculator is ultimately trying to sell you something.
I may be the calculator too.
You think they're trying to, maybe they're stealing my data. They're trying to figure out what kind of numbers I like to use. They're like, this guy loves sevens. We're going to send, next thing you know, like Instagram, I'll see an ad for a 7 poster. Maybe that's true. Another thing you said to me, this was maybe 2 or 3 years ago when we signed a 2-book deal. You said, John, you're a jerk for the 2 years when you write a book, and you're a jerk for the 2 years when you sell a book, and that's not going to work. I'd rather you be a happy plumber than a miserable writer. You
would be a terrible plumber.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think we know that. People listening probably know. What do you think? Like a happy lumberjack? Something. I own a knife now. So that's pretty cool.
Nothing with sequence.
Nothing. I think, okay. Like not an electrician. I'd be dead in like 30 seconds. I would die on the first job. Someone would be like, can you change out this light switch? And they'd be like, man, that guy was terrible on electricity. So, okay, let's not get distracted. What did you mean by that?
What was your question again?
2 years, you're a jerk and you didn't say jerk because you're pretty profane around the house.
Well,
I try to keep this show clean.
I use that word for emphasis.
Yeah.
I mean, writing books is your job. It's just your job.
Yeah.
Just do your job. I mean, in the same way that if you're a customer service account person, you just do your job. And for some reason, you had decided that writing books was some calling from on high, and it was applying a lot of emotion in our family
and a lot of stress.
Just do your job.
Yeah, we joke about that often. That like an accountant doesn't get praised at the in this
I mean, your job's nice. People give you compliments.
My job is amazing. I have the exact level of fame that I love, which is like 2 people recognize me a week and they give me compliments. Like in the street, people come up and are like, hey, you're good at your job. And I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you for saying that. I love your books. I looked at that statement more as the 2 years thing, that I was making it so dramatic that I was using chaos and stress as a fuel.
Yeah, totally. But because you were using chaos as your writing impetus versus
as like just doing the thing.
Just do your job. Just
do your job.
Sit down and write every day, and then you don't get scared of it.
Yeah, if I take time off from writing a book now, it just gets terrifying.
Bad. It's not great.
Yeah, you said that too. Another thing you said is writers who aren't writing aren't fun to live with. And I think that's true of a lot of things that people enjoy doing. Like runners who aren't running probably are not super fun to live with. Like people who aren't engaged in the thing they enjoy doing are probably not enjoyable.
Well, it's coming out sideways, other ways. Whatever is your creative expression, if you're not expressing it, it's coming out some other way, sideways.
And usually not in great ways. Here's a surprise question. Is it hard to be married to somebody so famous? Do you find it challenging? Do you think
with your ring light shining on your face?
Yeah, that's right. I got a ring light on right now. That is one of our running gags, where if somebody I remember we were at a shoe store and somebody was like, oh, hey, I really love your books, and it was like a Saturday and we left. It took like 4 minutes. It was so nice to the person. And I said in the parking lot, and to think you get to spend all day with me. Mm-hmm. Like all that day. Person just got to see me for 4 minutes, but just this whole week, this whole week you've been around me. You don't find that overwhelming or intimidating?
No.
You've managed. You've managed
no,
it.
like sometimes when, because you moved into my workspace.
This house, yeah.
Yes.
I really didn't ask permission either.
No, I mean, you work from here, but then the pandemic made it so you never left.
I never left, dude.
And yeah, like you came into my workspace. I mean, like, yeah.
Finish this. Where's this sentence going?
Well, sometimes you're like, no, you can't use the washer machine.
Oh, yeah. I'm recording a podcast. And you're like, excuse me? Like, I'm sorry. Jenny, once we have a studio, that won't be an issue. But until I reach studio.
Where is the studio going?
Probably,
in your car?
Oh, I think somebody's already done that bit. Like, oh, I'm crazy. Jerry Seinfeld does that. I can't do that. It's coffee and cars. That's not going to work. That's so funny. But yeah, I did come into your space, which let's end with this. On a sad note, in a way, I had to fire you from this company.
Oh, that's not true.
How do you see that story? How do you remember that?
Well, you thought we were partners and I'm the CEO.
Well, but I eventually had to be like, you're fired.
No, you had to remember that you were the talent.
Which is why I have a ring light on. That's what talent does. Like, we realized we can work on a lot of things together, but we weren't going to do the day-to-day of running the business together. Like,
no, but I write the books with you.
Yeah.
I mean, not physically.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they're good.
We mature the ideas together.
Exactly. But I remember you said you need an assistant because that will be cheaper than marriage counseling.
Yes, I can sit in on all the big meetings, but she needs to get the phone call when the light doesn't work because you'll be nicer.
I will. I am nice. I'm very nice.
Yeah, but you don't want to be nice to me.
I would probably be grumpy. But yeah, you don't want the call from like, I'm in Tacoma and I'm trying to get to Dayton, Ohio, and there's 7 connections. And I'm like, Jenny, I really don't like this flight schedule. You don't.
And you're like, and you were the one that said, yeah, that sounds great. 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think that's something that we talk about a lot, about admitting you're the person that's going to be doing the thing that you're saying yes to.
Yeah, you have a real hard time connecting with the future version of yourself.
Yeah, of saying, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And then when it shows up, being like, why did I do this? Mm-hmm. Why did I? And stopping in the moment and going, okay, the person, like 3 weeks from now, I'm going to be this person. And that person is me.
That is having to be at the airport at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Because I thought that was a great idea 3 weeks ago when I didn't have to do it.
Yeah. And now I'm like, why do I hate myself so much? Last statement that you've made that I think is interesting. There was a challenge I was having with work, and it was I couldn't do a bunch of stuff and I was frustrated and I was working really hard. And you said, you must have a terrible boss. Mm-hmm. And it stopped me in my tracks because I'm the boss.
Yeah. And you can't quit either.
I can't quit. I quit so many jobs. But I think there is this degree of when you start to take responsibility for what you're doing, whether you run your own company, whether you just have a health goal of saying, oh, okay, wait a second. Like, if I hate running, I should do a different activity. Like, mm-hmm. there's no running police. Mm-hmm. But I think of that as like taking personal responsibility. What did you mean by, hey, you must have a terrible boss?
I mean, I meant that just that sometimes you'd be like trying to get like running, like eating lunch down here and then running back upstairs. Like some boss was keeping you on the clock. I'm like,
yeah, I'm like taking a 7-minute lunch break. And you've said, you never would have worked this hard for somebody else. Who's doing this to you? It's you. And I was like, what are you talking about? So I think connecting the reality of our life to the, and taking responsibility for, okay, am I doing this in a way that is sustainable? Am I doing this in a way that's drama free? Am I doing this in a way that's fun? I think that's how I took it.
Yeah. Well, and I think I don't know if all dreamers are like you, but the way you do your dreaming is, there's a lot of like goals involved, and sometimes it's just chaos. Like I'll see you like drinking a like gulping a glass of water in the kitchen. And I'm like, oh, he's got some stupid water goal right now.
Yeah, I started this year with one. I was like,
and I was like, you look miserable. You
it was
didn't look
miserable.
happy.
It was too much water for my body. It was way too much water. And I was trying to drink. I've gone through different periods where I've tried a gallon a day where I
It's
carried
just
around.
too much. You're not that big of a person.
What am I, like 6'4"?
No.
Hey, ooh, you're actually like half an inch taller than me. But I would try to drink a gallon of water a day, and I'd carry around a gallon jug like a weightlifter, like places. And then I was like,
you weren't a writer.
Like I wasn't a writer. I was like, oh yeah, exactly. Like I don't expend a ton of sweat during the course of my, like, it's not like I'm a bricklayer where it's like, dude, you're out in the hot sun. You're a roofer.
You got a big hat on.
You got to replenish yourself. You know, like there's never, I don't have a towel that I wipe sweat off with next to my desk. But yeah. And so then this year I was like, I'm just going to do 99 ounces. And even that felt like too much because you're right. You would catch me in the kitchen and it'd be the end of the day.
Like with a grimace.
Yeah, and I'd be like, I hate this stupid water so much. And I was just like, but I gotta do it. Why? Who is making you do this? Like, and I'm like, well, I'm just trying a goal. And like, it's not a good goal. When I tell people I'm a goal nerd, that's what I mean. Like, I would say in books, podcasts, Twitter, whatever, people are getting like 10% of the crazy goals I'm trying.
They're getting like 1.
Yeah, and you're getting the other 99%, and you have to be like, wait, why did you do that? What is that? What does that mean? The water is definitely an easy example. I think another one is when I'll be like, I'm gonna obsessively make the bed, and I'll catch myself making the bed at a hotel because I want to get the credit. And you're like, from who?
I know. Yeah, it's a little weird.
Yeah, it's a little weird, but and you'll go, if the bed is unmade, you'll go, oh, you must be done with that goal. Like at the end of the day, you'll remark.
Yeah, but you never tell me it's happening or not happening. It's just like this secret thing.
I'm not trying to keep it secret, but I mean, I've got a lot of goals. I can share you the list. You're in the kitchen. I'm upstairs. We're not far because the studio hasn't been built yet, but that I'll put together a PowerPoint and we'll get a slide deck going. Maybe I'll get a studio. But Jenny, I am so glad you joined me on this podcast today. I have a prediction. I think this is going to be a really popular episode and we'll probably make this a regular thing.
Nope.
I could see us, just hear me out. I could see.
Nope, don't you go promising things I'm not going to do.
When you do your book launch, we'll do a separate podcast.
Well, there you go. That'll be easy because I'll never launch a book.
Yeah, I think iHeartRadio might hear this and be like, you guys need to be on iHeartRadio and talk about love and dreaming together more regularly.
I doubt that.
It's just putting it out there. We'll say, or a water company might be like, this guy sounds like he's perfect for our water. Like, I'll gulp some water. Yeah, exactly. Well, no, like Dasani or like Aquafina or Smart Water. I'm just, gotta get sponsors. Babies need shoes. These expensive hats you keep buying me aren't free.
They're detailed.
With my detailed hat. Well, I am so glad you joined me today. It was super fun, and I think there's a lot of great content in here that a lot of people will be served by. So thanks for joining me. I'll see you in like 10 minutes with a huge, crazy idea I have that I would love you to get behind 100%, and I'll tell you 4 details.
Okay.
All right. Love you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to my interview with Jenny Acuff today. I don't know why I keep saying her full name, Jenny Acuff. I think my favorite part was when we talked about water, the water goal, and how obsessed I sometimes get with fairly meaningless goals, like just go all in. I've got a huge glass of water beside me as I record this. We'll put all the links in the show notes as always, and thank you for reviewing my podcast. We're marching our way to 1,000 reviews, and that's going to be super exciting when we're able to hit that, and every review counts. So thank you for doing that. I really, really appreciate it. Please make sure to subscribe or follow or whatever it is the kids are saying these days. And please write a review. Last but not least, big thank you once again to our sponsor, Uguazi Macadamia. Visit buymacadamias.com and use the code Jon Acuff to get a free snack-size package of roasted and lightly salted macadamia nuts with any order. That's it for this week. I'll see you next Monday. And remember, all it takes is a goal.
Thanks for listening. To learn more about the All It Takes Is a Goal podcast and to get access to today's show notes and exclusive content from Jon Acuff, visit acuff.me/podcast. Thanks again for joining us. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the All It Takes Is a Goal podcast.